This news report highlights the ongoing legal battle of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra (IPOB), with a focus on his bail application appeal, which is scheduled for hearing on October 17, 2024, in Nigeria's Court of Appeal. Nnamdi Kanu, whose release was previously denied, is seeking bail in a case that has garnered significant public attention, with the supporters and critics divided. Nnamdi Kanu was initially arrested and charged by the Nigerian government on allegations including terrorism and treason linked to his leadership of IPOB, a group advocating for the independence of the southeastern Biafran region. After his arrest, Nnamdi Kanu fled the country following a violent military raid on his home in 2017, which led to multiple deaths. Nnamdi Kanu was later captured in Kenya in 2021 through what many have termed an illegal rendition. The Kenyan government, as well as several international human rights groups, condemned the way Nnamdi Kanu was brought back to Nigeria without proper legal protocols. Nnamdi Kanu's legal ordeal has taken several twists and turns, with his initial release ordered by Nigerian courts and then revoked by other court rulings. The government, through its various legal maneuvers, has continued to hold Nnamdi Kanu in detention despite rulings from Nigerian and international courts ordering his release. In fact, a previous court ruled that Nnamdi Kanu's detention and rendition were illegal and that the Nigerian government owed him 1.5 billion naira in damages. However, the government has refused to comply with officials, stating that releasing Nnamdi Kanu would cause embarrassment and undermine the authority of the state. Some human rights activists have expressed frustration with the way Nnamdi Kanu is being treated, pointing out that many people who criticize him do so without fully understanding the charges against him. Many Nigerians are unsure of what Nnamdi Kanu has actually done to justify his prolonged incarceration, suggesting that much of the public's perception is shaped by government's propaganda and misinformation. The news report also touches on the jealousy and hatred directed at Nnamdi Kanu, particularly from some Igbo elites who are uncomfortable with his influence over millions of people, both educated and uneducated, in the southeast region. The use of propaganda by the Nigerian government to paint IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu as terrorists is very funny. This narrative has been pushed heavily through media channels, despite the fact that Nnamdi Kanu's advocacy for self-determination, a political cause rather than a criminal act, is protected under international law. The news points out the heavy hypocrisy of the Nigerian government, which has allegedly recruited violent actors referred to as unknown gunmen in the southeast region to create chaos, justifying their continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu. The upcoming hearing of Nnamdi Kanu's bail appeal has been scheduled on October 17, 2024, and is seen as critical. Some critics sarcastically refers to the legal battle as a seasoned movie, implying that the government keeps prolonging the case through unnecessary legal delays. The current trial is seen as a mockery of justice, especially since the court previously acquitted Nnamdi Kanu, declaring that no Nigerian court has the jurisdiction to try him based on his illegal rendition from Kenya. The Nigerian government has continued to insist on retrying Nnamdi Kanu, much to the dismay of his supporters and human rights activists. Nnamdi Kanu's case highlights broader issues in Nigeria's judicial and political system, particularly how the government has weaponized the law to suppress political dissent. As Nnamdi Kanu's bail appeal approaches, public opinion is split between those who see him as a freedom fighter advocating for the rights of his people and those who have been swayed by government's narrative labeling him a criminal. Regardless of the outcome, the case is emblematic of the deep tension within Nigeria over ethnic identity, political power, and human rights abuse. Before I continue further, I want you guys to watch this video, and after that, we'll talk more about this Nnamdi Kanu's case.
Of execution, because they've lost all the lies, all of the media trial, all the propaganda, everything fell flat because they did not actually even have any chance of proving anything in court. Till tomorrow, they have nothing to prove in court that Nnamdi Kanu actually committed any crime. But majority of all these things, a lot of you hated him. Majority of what you have all come from the propaganda you have been fed on social media. And maybe your hatred for the Igbos, by the way. There are Igbos who also hated Nnamdi Kanu simply because they couldn't believe that somebody like Nnamdi Kanu controls such massive following. They were jealous of him, right? And because of that, they wanted him killed. They support Nigeria. They believe that, in fact, they were actually saying, people who are following Nnamdi Kanu are illiterates, only for them to realize that they are the illiterates, the arrogant idiots, self-hating Igbos, who just wanted a man that they couldn't believe that both educated, uneducated, well-exposed, well-traveled businessmen, rich and also rich Igbos, actually listened to him. They couldn't believe it. As these people don't listen to their criminal politicians, they do not respect them per se. But that Nnamdi Kanu and his microphone, that Nnamdi Kanu and his social media platform is able to control the millions of people that respect him so much. They hated him for it. They wanted Nigeria to kill him, but they couldn't kill him. They couldn't jail him. They couldn't prove anything in their courts. In their desperation, they violated international laws. They kidnapped him from Kenya. And their court told them that's so wrong. If you really want to try him, you have to follow the process of extradition. You need to return Nnamdi Kanu to Kenya. And you have to pay him 1.5 billion naira in damages. Return him to Kenya. Then you can now go back to Kenya, okay, and begin the process of whatever accusation you have against him, you have to present it to the Kenya courts, okay, and apply for extradition. That is when you can bring him to Nigeria and then try him on the treason or whatever terrorism nonsense you want to charge him for. Not just use social media and begin to tell people on social media, IPOB is dangerous, IPOB is terrorist, IPOB, yeah. When we all know that the real terrorist here is the Nigerian government. They are wanted to, that has criminalized self-determination. So self-determination is not a crime anywhere in the world. If I say, okay, yeah, I am supporting Yoruba nation, let us break up. It is my right. That doesn't mean that I am committing any crime. What happened then is that if I have enough following, I can push for a referendum enough that you just have to give in. That's democracy. You don't criminalize it. So they did all of that on social media. When they now kidnapped him to Nigeria, they couldn't present any evidence that Nnamdi Kanu meant any harm or Nnamdi Kanu planned any terrorism in Nigeria. They couldn't present anything. They just wanted the court to kind of lock him up illegally. So Malamu went back to court. He went to court to say he will go to the Supreme Court. And if they release Nnamdi Kanu, it's going to bring shame to the government of Bukwari. And it is going to bring so and so to Nigeria. An embarrassment. You have already caused an embarrassment. You locked an innocent man up on trumped up charges that you can't prove anything. You continue to feed your citizens with lies, propaganda. When that won't work, you resorted into recruiting terrorists in eastern Nigeria. Abi, you call them unknown gunmen, so that you can have something to justify why you are keeping Nnamdi Kanu. But even at that, you still can't stand in your own court, right, to present any evidence. No, you can't. So they went to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then said, what happened is that the the Bintan Yako court shouldn't have revoked his bail when it was obvious that while on bail, Nigerian army, they went to his house to kill him. He ran for his life. He would have been dead by now if he stayed back to let them kill him. They killed over 28 people in front of his house. All of these are just provocation by the Nigerian army. So that is not enough for the Muritala Nyako to revoke his bail. That bail should be reinstated. The Supreme Court that should have upheld the appeal, Abi, decided that they should go and do the retrial. They now send him back to Nyako. The Nyako, this Binta Nyako, this mad woman here on the left, who justified keeping an innocent man in jail, right? Revoked his bail. They now sent Nnamdi Kanu back to her to go and retry. And Nnamdi Kanu said, no, I do not have any case in front of you. You can't try me. The Supreme Court says the reason why I should be here is probably since Supreme Court is so lily-livered, right? To kind of like approve what the appeal court already ruled on in 2022. So here I am, you, Mrs. Nyako, you have to reinstate my bail and let me go. Or I am not going to defend anything in front of your court anymore. I do not have any case here. And she said, if you don't put up your defense now, if you don't put up your defense, I am going to rule, Yoshi, rule. Because Nigeria is a lawless place. So that Soho, this madman on the right, is now the one who says, Nyako cannot leave the case. He must continue as the judge in this trial. And Nnamdi Kanu says, there's no trial. Can't you guys see it? There's no trial. There shouldn't be any trial. I do not have any case in front of you guys. But it is Nigeria. I told you that they are not keeping him because of they are keeping him all because they want to keep him as it's like keeping a trophy. You get that now? Yes, we got him. Yes, we kidnapped him. We committed the international crime just because we wanted to have this guy. So inside your own court, right? He defeated you inside your own court. He's the most dreaded person to them. So every time they take him to court, they said it cost them 500 million naira every day. Every time you see Nnamdi Kanu in court, it costs Nigeria 500 million naira. Let him go. Pay in his 1.5 billion, put him on the next available private jet, and fly him straight to Kenya. And all this madness can end. But they won't do that. So that man on the right, who is the judge, and what they call him, the chief judge of the High Court, has insisted that Nnamdi Kanu should continue the case in front of Nyako. And so the injustice continues, unfortunately.
The case of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, continues to dominate Nigerians' political discourse with a focus on his ongoing detention and legal battles. The latest development, as highlighted in the reference news report, concerns an appeal set to be heard on October 17, 2024, regarding Nnamdi Kanu's bail status. This case, which has been ongoing for years, encapsulates many of the challenges Nigeria faces in balancing national security, judicial integrity, and human rights, as well as the larger political dynamics surrounding the Biafra movement. In this analysis, we will critically examine the key elements of this report, interpret the broader implications, and analyze the intersections of law, politics, and public perception in Nigeria today. The news report begins by providing context on the upcoming appeal, which is aimed at addressing Nnamdi Kanu's bail status, previously denied. It is important to note that the case has gone through several judicial phases, from Nnamdi Kanu's initial arrest and detention to his eventual discharge by the Court of Appeal in October 2022. The Nigerian federal government, however, has refused to release him, despite the court's ruling that no legal grounds existed for his continued incarceration. This refusal by the federal government of Nigeria raises significant questions about the role of the judiciary in Nigeria's democratic process and the extent to which the executive arm of the government can influence judicial outcomes. The report frames the government's actions as a play or movie, suggesting a sense of frustration and disbelief at the repetitive nature of Nnamdi Kanu's legal saga. Some critics even sarcastically reference different seasons of the government's actions, indicating that Nnamdi Kanu's trial are perceived as drawn out and farcical. This commentary reflects the deep skepticism many Nigerians hold towards their legal and political institutions, where court rulings are sometimes disregarded and cases linger indefinitely. The case continues postponement, such as the one mentioned in the report, where a hearing was adjourned to October 17, 2024, further erode public confidence in the judicial system in Nigeria. The uncertainty surrounding Nnamdi Kanu's bail status only deepens the perception of legal manipulation, with many seeing the judiciary as subservient to political interests rather than an impartial arbiter of justice. Nnamdi Kanu's arrest and the subsequent labeling of IPOB as a terrorist organization have been central to the Nigerian government's narrative. As the report notes, many people remain unaware of the actual charges against Nnamdi Kanu or the lack of substantive evidence presented in court. The Nigerian government has been accused of engaging in a media campaign to demonize Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB without offering concrete proof of criminal activities. This media manipulation and the reliance on propaganda are crucial to understanding the broader political environment in Nigeria. The government has consistently portrayed IPOB as a threat to national unity, while failing to address the underlying grievances that fuel the Biafra movement. In doing so, it has successfully turned a large portion of the Nigerian populace against Nnamdi Kanu and his cause, even as the courts have repeatedly found no basis for his detention. This divergence between public perception and legal reality highlights the powerful role that state-controlled narratives play in Nigeria's political landscape. Nnamdi Kanu's case has drawn international attention, particularly due to the circumstances of his arrest. He was apprehended in Kenya in 2021 under controversial circumstances, which many, including international human rights organizations, have described as an illegal adoption. The report referred to this as a violation of international law, citing the lack of formal extradition proceedings and the Nigerian government disregard for due processes. This extrajudicial rendition has become one of the central arguments against the Nigerian government in this case. Some critics emphasize that the courts have already ruled that Nnamdi Kanu's adoption was illegal and that the proper course of action would be to return him to Kenya and initiate a formal extradition process if the government still seeks to try him. However, the Nigerian government has not complied with this ruling, further intensifying accusations of human rights abuse. This report also notes that Nnamdi Kanu was awarded 1.5 billion naira in damages by the court for his illegal detention. Yet, the government has failed to honor this judgment. The defiance of court orders reinforce the view that the Nigerian state operates with impunity, particularly when it comes to politically sensitive cases. The broader implication here is that Nigeria's disregard for judicial ruling not only undermines the rule of law domestically, but also harms the country's international standing. Nnamdi Kanu's case is not just a legal matter, it is deeply political. His continued detention is seen by many as a symbol of the Nigerian government's broader efforts to suppress dissent, particularly among marginalized groups like the Igbo people, who are at the heart of the Biafran movement. The report touches on the jealousy and animosity that some political figures have towards Nnamdi Kanu due to his ability to mobilize millions of followers through his speeches and social media presence. His influence poses a direct challenge to the political establishment, which explains, at least in part, why his release is so contentious. The Nigerian government has long been wary of secessionist movements, seeing them as existential threats to the nation's unity. The memory of the Nigerian Civil War of 1967 to 1970, which was fought over Biafra's attempted secession, looms large in the country's collective consciousness. This historical context is crucial to the understanding why the government is so determined to keep Nnamdi Kanu in detention, despite the lack of evidence against him. His release could reignite separatist sentiments and embolden the Biafra's movement, potentially destabilizing the country. The upcoming appeal on Nnamdi Kanu's bail status is yet another chapter in a long and complex legal and political battle. This report highlights the frustration many Nigerians feel with their government's handling of the case, the manipulations of public perception through propaganda, and the blatant disregard for court ruling. At its heart, the case raises profound questions about justice, human rights, and the future of Nigeria as a united nation. As Nnamdi Kanu's appeal approaches, the stakes remain high, not only for the man himself, but for the country as a whole. This is the end of our news update. I'll see you again in my next video.